Discussions in this show should not be construed as specific recommendations or investment advice. Always consult with your investment professional before making important investment decisions. And now, Financial Renaissance with the Emms.
Financial knowledge seekers, happy Sunday to you. Thank you for joining me on this wonderful morning. Can you believe we are almost through the month of January already? I feel like time, I don't know if it's when you get older, time just seems to, like sand, just kind of flows through your hands, like you can't quite hold it. But yes, this year is starting off with a bang, and I'm very excited. Wanted to on today's show, we're going to be doing something special. We do have an elder care manager, someone who is going to talk to us about the ways that we can help care for our older population, our older loved ones, because whether we want to or not, no matter, which generation you are, if you're a boomer, an Xer, a millennial, or a Zer, at some point in time, you are going to have to understand how long-term care works, how Medicaid works, how Medicare works. You also may end up dipping into your own pocket, your own savings, to help take care of our elder loved ones. So before that happens, and it's a big surprise, let's figure out what we need to do and the questions that we have to ask our elder loved ones. They may not want to talk about it, but they don't have a choice anymore. We didn't want to talk about the birds and the bees with them, but they forced that conversation on us. So we have to force this conversation on them to make sure we all know exactly where we stand. I also want to say thank you to the Trans Gentlemen of Excellence. I did a workshop for them this past Tuesday. I don't know if it was 40 or 50 people in the room, but oh my gosh, they had so much energy. They asked so many questions. We talked about debt reduction strategies, different ways to save, and how to, get your credit right. Because again, if your credit is straight, then borrowing money is not going to be a problem for you. Also, today we are going to be addressing what's happening in the world. Global warming, it seems, is taking front and center. There's a big conference coming up in Switzerland this week at Davos, and we have, the world leaders, CEOs, everybody who's, the most powerful people in the world will be heading to Davos, and they're going to be talking about climate change. Even that little girl, that young lady, Greta Thunberg, I think her name is, or Greta something, she's going to be there along with President Trump, and I'm hoping they don't get into like a schoolyard brawl. It's going to be horrible. But we are going to talk about it because the country of Australia is on fire. I believe the amount of burnage that they had is equivalent to, I think, the state of Louisiana. They have had over 1 million acres burned, and that is going to have a significant effect globally with insurance companies and things of that nature. So we need to start, this conversation has to start. It has to happen. And I'm going to tell you the types of companies that are taking, some of the companies that are actually committing to being 100% using renewable energies, renewable electricities, and things of that nature. It is going to be one of the places for us to start investing in to make sure that we can undo some of the damage that's been done to our country. All right. One of the cool things about our guest, Lisa Kaufman, she is the aging life care manager and CEO of Senior Care Options. And if it's hasn't happened to you, or if you know someone who's in that situation where they think something maybe happened to an elder loved one and they need to figure out what to do, share this video with them. Tell them to watch us, because coming up we will be answering those questions, and you'll have my top 5 news stories of the week, as well as my Emma Knows Money tips for the week. See you back in 180 seconds. We are back with Financial Renaissance with the Emms. We are ready for my top five financial news stories of the week. Okay, one industry has replaced over half of its CEOs with women in 2019. Can you guess? All right. It is the apparel industry. They have the highest rates of CEO replacements out of any other industry in the United States of America. That's right. They have replaced, put 58% of the women in the apparel industry. 58% of the CEOs are now female. So that is great. Also, companies in the government and nonprofit sector also had high numbers of female CEO replacements at 43%. Hospitals are at 35%, healthcare and products about 22%, and in the financial industry, believe it or not, 20%. Lagging behind in the replacing or even introducing female CEOs is the tech industry at about 7.6. And with a big goose egg, the industries that have zero female CEOs are the cannabis industry, chemical, engineering, legal, mining, and also telecom. So they get a big boo. But females are leading right now about 33% of the Fortune 500 companies. And unfortunately, women CEOs tend to get what they call the glass cliff. So that's when they'll bring in a woman to take care of a business after the business has failed. So women come in to clean up the mess. All right, next story is about manufacturing. Okay, what's keeping the manufacturing industry down? A skills gap. That's right, knowledge. So the manufacturing industry is looking at being great again. They want us as a country to be great again. And so what they're going to do is spend $26.2 billion. That is 9 zeros and a comma and a digit. They're going to spend $26.2 billion on training initiatives for new and current employees this year in 2020. There's a shortage of available workers. So again, for you, if you are, not making a lot of money, this is an opportunity now that you know that manufacturing industry is looking at training people. And then if you are looking for a way to get out of your city or your town, you may need to figure out where some of these manufacturing companies are. Again, what they want to do is upskill, which is a new terminology, the current workforce, and they want to make sure that there is a pipeline of talent to fill positions. So the skills gap has been the #1 challenge for manufacturers for the past 2 years. And to be quite frank, it's actually 9 quarters to be exact. And this is according to the National Association of Manufacturers. So the question that you're going to have to ask yourself is, would you be willing to move or relocate to get into the manufacturing industry? And one of the things that they're looking at doing is offering flex time models, part-time, full-time training, benefits, 401k plans, employer matches, things of that nature. So they're saying that there's going to be a need of an additional 2.4 million jobs in the manufacturing sector by the year 2028. All right, so you have to get this right. All right, next up, there are 10 boom towns, cities in the United States of America. And so this is based on certain criteria of, attracting new residents. They have a thriving economy, and they also have ample housing. And on previous shows, you've heard me mention certain cities that will pay you, $10,000 to live there, start your own business, work remotely, things like that. So here are the metrics that they looked at are the change in household income over a 5-year period, population change, unemployment rates, number of jobs created, the GDP of the city, the business growth rate, and also housing. So based on the stats, the top 10 cities where incomes have risen by 25% or more are Concord, North Carolina, Milpitas, California, Enterprise, Nevada, Meridian, Ohio, College Station, Texas, Seattle, Washington, Charleston, South Carolina, Miami, Florida, Denton, Texas, and then Longmont, Colorado. So again, if you are looking to relocate for a job, these are some of the cities that you're going to want to tap into and see if there are some opportunities there for you. All right. For retirees, if you're looking at retiring, you haven't saved a lot, and you're trying to figure out how are you going to live in the United States of America, well, maybe the United States of America is no longer for you. So I've got 2 countries that have quality healthcare and low-cost living. So in America right now, affordable housing and living and quality healthcare is becoming unattainable for not just the average everyday person, but also our elder loved ones, our seniors. So their cost of healthcare is just skyrocketing. So the country of Italy ranks 9th on the healthcare index. And just to give you some perspective, the United States ranks 29th on good quality healthcare. So in Italy, they have a high ratio of doctors to residents. They have free or low cost point of delivery services and prescriptions. And they're saying that Northern Italy has better healthcare facilities per the article that I read than Southern Italy, but I'm sure that'll start some type of battle. But it is possible to get by on about $20,000 a year in Italy. And I said possible, not probable, but possible. So do your research. And then the second country is España. That is Spain. That is the Spanish-speaking country in Europe. And they are 19th on the list for healthcare. And based on what I've read, you can get by with about $2,000 per month. So that's $24,000 a year. So again, if you're trying to figure out what to do about retirement and the United States is looking too tight, you may want to consider going overseas. All right. And the last story, and I want a big congratulations for the company Visa. That's right. The big financial services company Visa, they have met their goal to use 100% renewable electricity by the year 2020. Can I get some hand claps? Yes. All right. They've done this in 131 offices throughout 76 countries and 4 global processing centers. They have a sustainable mix of renewable energy sources using both solar and wind, and I just wanted to commend them for that. They are now listed on the Dow Jones Sustainability North American Index. They've been there since 2017. So congratulations to them because they have reduced their greenhouse gas emissions by 90% since the year 2014. So again, give it up for Visa. We got to commend companies when they're doing things the right way for the globe. All right. When we come back on Financial Renaissance with the Emms, I'm going to be talking to you about the rising costs of healthcare and why you need to pay attention to these costs, because if it's not going to affect you for another 20, 30, 40 years, it may end up impacting somebody that you love very much. So when we come back on Financial Renaissance with the Emms, and we are back with Financial Renaissance with the Emms. I want to thank you for joining in and watching us, listening to us on this Sunday morning. You are looking at us live on Facebook.com. You could just go to Sensation Station Network, click the like button, and then you'll be able to see the show and all its production value. If you are about to head in the car, you can tune into us at ssnatl.com or sensationstationnetwork.com. And you can also follow the station and listen to the broadcast live on TuneIn while you're sitting in church or at brunch. All right, before the break, also, if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the comments section on the station's page, or if you're watching from my Facebook live stream, go ahead and put your comments in, or you can text us at 678-613-5857, and we'll answer any questions that you have. But before the break, I talked about the high cost of care for our elder loved ones. And there's a disease called dementia or Alzheimer's that is really taking a hold on a lot of us. Some people say it's because of the deodorant we use, the aluminum. They'll come up with a ton of reasons, but right now they don't quite have a cure. But Alzheimer's disease is the 6th leading cause of death here in the United States. And 82% of seniors think it's important to have their thinking or their memory checked. And this is important for us to know, because as we see our elder loved ones, if they start, forgetting to do certain things, repeating certain stories, forgetting certain things, we have to pay attention. It may not get better. 5.8 million people are living with Alzheimer's. And by the year 2050, that is going to be 14 million people. 14 million Americans are going to have Alzheimer's by the year 2050. Now, more than 16 million Americans, and this is why I'm bringing this up on today's show, more than 16 million Americans provide unpaid care for people living with Alzheimer's or dementia. Okay, that's a lot of money. And these caregivers provide an estimated about $234 billion of value. So that is money that's not being realized, that's just, poof, going up in smoke, because most people are not getting paid for it. And that's why I'm bringing this up, because again, if we have elder loved ones that don't like to talk about their finances and they don't want us all up in their business, well, it is our business, because if you're saving for retirement, if you're trying to get your kids through school, things of that nature, what happens with your parents or elder loved ones matters. So there is a generation called the sandwich generation. That's my generation. Those are people who are between the ages right now of 40 to 59, and that's about half of the country, a little bit less than that. And they provide, as I mentioned, a bunch of unpaid care. 66% of the caretakers happen to be women. And let's see, 1 in 4 number of caretakers who have to take leave from work to take care of their families is about 25% of the people out there. So the average amount of time spent on caregiving is about 25 hours a week. That's a part-time job. So imagine leaving home, you go to work, you come home, you take care of your family, and then you go to take care of your parents or your aunties or somebody else that's older. That is a lot. That's a big strain. And so today I want everyone to just kind of think, no matter which generation you're in, I want you to think about the cost of care. The average nursing home care is about $70,000 this year, depending on what city and state that you live in. But in 10 years from now, that average cost is projected to be $190,000. So to provide care for some of our elder loved ones, if we can't do it, it's going to be almost $200,000 a year. So they may not have that. That's maybe all they have saved up for retirement, plus their pension and Social Security. So where is that money going to come from? So that's why we have to have these conversations with our elder loved ones about what is our strategy, what is our plan, so we're able to do it now instead of waiting until we're in crisis mode when we can't do anything, called a family care benefit. So if you have to take time off from work to provide care for your family members, this disability policy will kick in if your hours, if your income reduces by about 20%. So if you have an income reduction of 20% because you're providing care for your family, this disability policy will kick in and pay you to try to make up for that shortage. So that's something that you should think about. The other thing that we have to talk about is actual long-term care insurance, okay? It is important that we look at getting this insurance if we can afford it. If your parents or your elder family members can't afford it, then maybe you and a couple of cousins, you and your brothers and sisters, everybody chips in, say $50 a month, $100 a month to pay for this policy. So a lot of Americans don't have it, but a lot of us are going to need it. It looks like 70% of the people who are turning age 65 can expect to use some form of long-term care during their lifetime. And I'm talking, these are people that, we already know them. They have diabetes, high blood pressure, and other chronic conditions. These are people who may even live alone. So they're going to need to have a nurse coming in, on a daily basis, and that costs a lot of money. Full-time care is about $250 a day to have someone come into the house. So when we come back on Financial Renaissance with the Emms, I have the answer to all of these questions. How do we put all this stuff together? Who do we turn to? So Lisa Kaufman will be here to answer your questions when we come back on FinRen. And we are back with Financial Renaissance with the Emms. Happy Sunday morning to you. Good morning to all our listeners all over the country and actually all over the world. Saying good morning or good day to the people in England. I don't know what their accent is. Buenos dias to the people in Costa Rica. I love all the feedback that we've been getting. You are watching us live at facebook.com/notdumbeddown, or you can go to facebook.com, search for Sensation Station Network, hit the like button, and then you can see the show. Or you can go on TuneIn, go to Sensation Station Network, and you can take us with you on your travels. Now, social media time. That's right. You can follow me on social media, Twitter at Financial Ren, at Emma Knows Money, and on Facebook and IG, Emma Knows Money, and also Financial Renaissance. And then on YouTube, you can go ahead and do a search for Emma Knows Money and hit that subscribe button, please. Okay, I need more subscribers. Coming up on the show, we have my Market Movers and Losers, which will, also I'll be talking about Davos and what's happening with the sustainability index. But first, I would like to introduce our guest today. We have a very special guest with us, Lisa Kaufman, the owner and Aging Life Care Manager of Senior Care Options. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you, Emma. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you here. It's been a long time coming.
It has
been. You were one of the first people to fill out your questionnaire. You filled it out months in advance.
It was.
Oh man! So tell us about Senior Care Options.
Well, it's a aging life care management practice that I started in 2001, and it has grown. I have 6 care managers that work with me now, and we are able to serve the needs of the greater Atlanta area.
And this is kind of in your blood, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
So
My mother, you alluded to this, my mother started a care management practice when she lived in Chicago, and she's now retired, but she was so excited she's a nurse, and she was so excited to really interface with her patients again, and it was infective. And I thought, that really is more my speed.
You know, nurses are the number one most trusted profession in the United States.
Really?
Yeah, they're not compensated well.
No,
they're
they're
not
not.
treated well, but they
I
are
did
the
not know
most
that.
trusted. Yeah, I was listening to
Cool.
NPR.
That's good to know.
Yeah, yeah.
Very cool.
So what is aging life care management?
It is sort of a consultative practice where credentialed clinicians and professionals guide families who are taking care of loved ones who are older or have disabilities.
Okay.
So anyone who requires some kind of care could use the help, guidance, advice, support, and advocacy of a professional.
And full disclosure, I've had to call Lisa before. I had a client, I don't know how many years ago, it was probably 5 years ago, who we realized something wasn't quite right. They had made dinner for 10 people, and out of the 10 people that they cooked dinner for, 5 of those people were no longer with us. They had passed away. And so I believe she was having a series of mini strokes, and we couldn't get her in to see her doctor. It was just a big to-do. But one of the first calls I made was to you to help out. So when do families typically, why should people reach out and call you?
Well, anytime somebody is struggling with the transition is a great time to call.
Okay.
If you're unsure or you think your loved one might need care, that's a great time to call. People don't shop at assisted livings because that's the way they want to spend their Sunday. They'd rather be listening to your show. So,
Yes.
Of course. So if you're shopping around, then there's obviously a need and you already know it.
Right.
But people then think, well, I don't need it yet. Okay, if you're looking at assisted living properties, you do need it and you know it.
Yeah.
Somewhere. Way
yeah.
deep
You know
down
that's where
inside.
you may end up, and it's best to
That's
start
right.
paying attention
Absolutely.
now. Now, I know that people typically feel that their family members will get better, or, I think people should call you before there's a crisis.
Oh, absolutely.
I think that once a
I would
person
love that.
hits a certain age, and that's what I want to do on the show today, is really get people to be more proactive in planning for the care of our aging loved ones. Waiting till the last minute, you don't have a lot of options when you do that.
No, you don't. I do want to just interject really quickly.
Go right
There
ahead.
is something that I am starting to see. There is a new segment for like a new trend we're seeing in the industry where people are proactive planners. They have no children. They may not be married any longer or never were. They may not have a significant other or a partner. And they're planning ahead for their own care. They don't need it now, but they want somebody to know what needs to be known about them before they need it. And
This
I
is
love
so important.
that. So it's not just about your loved ones, your aunts, your uncles, your grandparents, your mom, your dad. It could be for yourself if you don't have a support network that you want to care for you.
Now, people tend to think, and I don't know why, why do you trust the government? I don't trust the government, but then when it comes to long-term care, the government will take care of me. So
Yeah,
let's
no.
talk about the truth about this.
Okay.
There are 2 government programs. One is a
Yes.
federal program, one is a state-run program. And they're called Medicare, which is the federally run program. And we all pay taxes. We all pay taxes, so we pay into Medicare. And then there's something called Medicaid.
Yes.
Okay, do you want to tell us how those kind of fall into this picture?
Sure. Medicare is sort of the insurance program for adults with disabilities. If you are approved as someone who has a disability and you get SSDI, then you can get Medicare. If you are over 65, you can get Medicare. It pays for your doctor's visits, rehab, medical equipment, and hospitalizations. It doesn't pay for lots of other things. I do understand, and I'm going to try to be as politically correct as I can, that Medicare Advantage plans, and you can't see, I'll do air quotes.
Yes.
There's a lot of bells and whistles, and every year there's bells and whistles. And one of the things that they're currently doing is home care. Regular Medicare does not pay for home care. We're not talking home health.
Right.
Home health is the therapeutic, PT, OT, speech, nurses, wound care. That Medicare pays for.
So almost like with, like if you have to go into rehab and then you come home, they may come in for a
They
couple
may
of
come
hours,
in,
but you had to
exactly.
have gotten hurt like broke
You
a
need
hip.
a doctor's prescription for that.
Right.
And then Medicare will cover it for a very finite period of time.
Very short period.
Very short. And
Very short period.
here's the other little trick that you need to know is it varies according to where we are in the financial fiscal budget for the country. So the government is prescribing how much therapy you get, and it varies according to where we are in the budget.
Well, hey, our budget, our deficit just topped 1 trillion for the first time last year, for the first time in 7 years. So we don't have a budget for it.
No. No.
To be quite frank, we don't have a budget. We're not collecting enough tax revenue. So there is no budget for Medicare to provide long-term care, any type of long-term care benefits.
We poor Xers can't pay for everything.
No,
I know y'all want us to, but we really can't.
we cannot. So what about Medicaid?
So Medicaid is the program for indigent care. It is very limited as to what it pays for. It is usually for, especially in Georgia, it pays for nursing homes. It may pay for some waiver programs in the community, but honestly, the wait lists are so long, and it's very hard to actually get on service. There's just not enough people to provide that level of care. So for the most part, we're talking nursing home care.
Right. Now, the way that Medicare works is, and she mentioned you have to be indigent, so there's a certain
Medicaid.
amount for
Sorry,
Medicaid,
Medicaid.
excuse me, Medicaid, right? So what happens is, let's say you own a house, or your grandmother owns a house, and she has to get on Medicaid, and she's provided care in a nursing home. Well, once she passes away, the government comes back, and they'll take possession of that property. They're going to get paid back from her estate for what they paid out for nursing home care.
That is correct.
And this is why having a long-term care policy makes sense, because certain states have what's called a partnership. So let's say you paid, $10,000 in premiums into a long-term care policy. Well, the government, when they do come back to claw back what they paid out, they will leave that $10,000 in your estate. And when we come back on Financial Renaissance with the Emms, we're going to talk about who pays for care and how to make the right Medicare choices. Lisa's going to be here, so drop your questions when we come back in 180 seconds. And we are back with Financial Renaissance with the Emms. Happy Sunday to you all. Coming up on the show, we have my Emma Knows Money tips and also my market movers and losers. But first, we are here with, I want to say thank you to a couple of groups, the Urban Entrepreneur and the Internet Radio Station Promotion, which are Facebook groups. But I want to talk about the heavy burden or the high burden on caregivers because it ends up becoming a financial concern. As I'm building financial plans for clients, the one question that I always ask them is if they're going to be responsible for anyone's care. Do they have anyone in their family who's special needs or who's elderly, that has any chronic or terminal illnesses, things of that nature. Among the higher burden caregivers, 57% are providing financial support to a loved one. 75% of caregivers have an income of less than $25,000, if you can believe that. And then 77% are concerned with meeting their own financial needs. So higher burden caregivers have an average of 1.8 chronic conditions. So the stress levels from providing care for elder loved ones or just loved ones, period, it's taking a toll on our nation. And so that's why I have Lisa here today to make sure, one, you can still retire when you need to retire, and two, you don't stroke out before it's time for you to retire. Because providing care for an elder loved one, it literally, it takes a physical, it takes a mental, emotional, financial toll on you, right?
It does.
So who pays for this care? Who pays for care? How does care get paid for?
It depends. And the best way to have the most choices is if you self-pay.
Really?
Yeah. So if you're relying on Medicare and Medicaid, you don't have as many options. In fact, with Medicaid, you have very few
slim to none, right?
options.
Okay.
If you are able to self-pay in some form, your own savings, your own retirement, your 401k, your long-term care insurance, your
So
pension.
you're okay with long-term care? Because that's what I advocate. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I advocate for.
It's asset protection.
It is. It's
Yeah.
risk management.
Oh,
Like
absolutely.
You pay
Yeah.
a couple of pennies for lots of dollars.
That's right.
In the future.
Yeah,
So
and it absolutely helps out. I think a lot of people think that just Social Security will take care of it or just their pension. it really needs to be a multifaceted approach and able to really afford care. The more assets you have, and I don't mean that as you have to be super wealthy, but you do have to have something.
Yeah.
Then you have more choices.
So what are some of the costs? We're talking about costs. We're saying long-term care. I mentioned that in 10 years, the average cost for assisted living or care to be provided is going to be about $200,000 a year. I know that the healthcare cost rises at about 6% annually, but I cannot fathom paying $200,000 a year for care.
The bulk of the cost is in caregivers. It's a really low-paid job. It is expensive. That's why a lot of people end up in assisted living, because they can share those caregivers, and it makes it more cost-effective. If you have someone in your own home, but you have them as much as you really would need them. So sometimes people cut corners because I can afford if they come in, let's say 5 days a week from 12 to 7. Great. What happens the rest of the time?
Yeah, overnight, because a lot of people need overnight care. They need help, and it's usually when you can't do 2 out of the 6 activities of daily living. So
that's
feeding
when
yourself,
long-term care insurance.
yeah, feeding yourself, taking yourself to the bathroom, incontinence or continence. Wait, is it incontinence or continence? Basically, you're having bladder control problems.
Yeah,
right?
the problems are the incontinence. If you're continent,
Oh,
then
yeah,
you
so the
have
incontinence.
you can hold everything.
Okay.
And that's important. So those are the activities of daily living. That's where the most care is that personal hands-on care. And sometimes it starts off with just supervision. Does this person actually do what they need to do in the shower, or do they stand there?
Right. Are they locking the doors at night? Are they leaving the stove on?
Do they have sundown so that if they're sundowning and they're up at night and they're sleeping during the day, well, Lord only knows what they're doing when everybody else in the house may be sleeping.
Yes.
Or not sleeping, which kind of goes back to the concern that you had for the caregiver burden. And statistically, if there is a dementing illness, the person who takes care of the person with dementia is much more likely to predecease the person they cared for.
Say that one more time, please.
The caregiver of the caregivee, the patient, often predeceases the person they care for, which in layman's terms, they die first, which means the person who is sick is still needing care.
Yes. And that happens again because of the stress levels,
Correct.
the financial stress levels, the
Correct.
emotional stress levels of things of that nature. And again, with long-term care policies, when you buy them, one of the things that they're doing now is they are allowing people to pay their family members as caregivers.
Yeah.
And to me, that makes the most sense in the world. If you're going to have a family member staying with you overnight, they get to get paid for being inconvenienced and being at your home.
Right.
So I don't see, to me, most Americans can't afford to not have long-term care insurance.
I agree with you.
Even in its smallest form.
Well, I think people think they're saving money by having family provide care, but the deal is they are unpaid caregivers, and they're working 24/7. And when you're taking care of another adult human being and yourself, you're living 2 lives.
Right.
It's exhausting.
It is. When we come back, we're going to talk about the boom of assisted living facilities and communities all over our country and here locally in Atlanta. If you have questions, drop them in the comment section. And we are back on Financial Renaissance with the Emms. Say, listen, if you miss an episode of the show, you can always catch it. We turned it into a podcast. It's available on wherever you get your podcasty thingies from. We're available on Podbean, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, and also iHeartRadio. Just look for Financial Renaissance with the Emms or Google Emma Knows Money. We have with us today Lisa Kaufman, who is the owner of Senior Care Options, which is a management company. You kind of facilitate
care management.
You navigate like, oh, my mom is, my mom fell and broke her hip and she doesn't remember her way home and blah, blah, blah. I call you, and then what do you do?
We evaluate the situation. We do a needs analysis. It's very comprehensive.
Okay.
And then we can develop a care plan, which is the roadmap.
The roadmap.
Where you're
so,
going.
So you
Yeah.
provide the roadmap for how we're going to care for our elder loved ones
Who the
throughout.
resources are, what the recommendations are, how to find the care, what these resources need to be doing for you, all of that.
Do you break down the gobbledygook that the doctors say?
Oh, yes.
You do?
We speak medical.
You speak medical?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's
Yeah.
one of the hardest things.
Yeah.
That's one
so
of
one
the
of the
hardest
things we do for our ongoing care management clients is we advocate with them in doctor's appointments and at the facilities. So if it's in the hospital or at the nursing home, we know what the rules are and how the game is played, and we are on your side.
Wow, and that is worth every penny.
Yes, it is.
It is worth every penny,
Yes, it
because
is.
what you don't know is what's going to hurt you.
That's
So
right.
let's talk about this. Like everywhere we look, there are assisted living communities popping up, right? I have an idea of what they should do. They should have low rent for like college students to keep
Girl.
everybody together.
I agree. That's what I think the future is.
That's what I think it is, and
Yeah.
it's happening in several places around the country. Also, lower cost housing for seniors and students. But what do you want to say about the assisted living facilities? Either here locally in Atlanta and across the nation. What is it that people need to know about these assisted living facilities?
I think the thing that concerns me the most is that there is a caregiver shortage across the country. So who's providing the care in these communities?
I did not know there was a caregiver
There
shortage.
is a it's an extreme caregiver shortage. And in the Atlanta area, and I imagine a lot of other places, they're all drawn from the same pool. So they work for home care companies, they work for the assisted living, and whatever gig gives them the most money, they will drop you like a potato and go to wherever they could get a quarter more.
So they need to make more.
They need to make
They
more.
need to make more.
They do need to make more. And what they do is important.
It's very important.
Yeah. So a lot of people then, I know this is not what you were asking about, but a lot of people hire independently, and I never advise that. It's cheaper, but then you have all the liability.
What do you mean independently? Like I'll find someone on the street, I'll go on Craigslist and say, hey, I need someone to take care of me,
My mom
Mom.
had this great housekeeper, and I just thought she could start taking care of my mother, and she'll do it for $10 an hour. Okay, that's great. She never got trained. If she gets hurt on the job, that's you paying
Yeah.
liability for that. If she suddenly befriends your mother and becomes her power of attorney, you got a huge legal battle coming your way.
Man, oh my gosh.
Yeah, she may steal things. She may say she needs money for her car. If she can't show up for work, it's your problem and nobody's covering. No background checks, no drug screens, no nothing. I always tell people to use an agency.
Yes.
But there is a shortage out there. We need more people getting into this.
So again, if you're looking at, careers of the future,
This is-
nursing is one,
yeah.
and then also caregiving
Absolutely.
is another one that you can get into. And quite frankly, they do need to be paid more,
I
because
agree.
I don't feel comfortable. I've been to some of the assisted living facilities, and the station is in a really nice neighborhood in Atlanta. It's in Buckhead, and I've been to some, and I've seen some of the workers there. And because of what I've seen, I've made a decision that I want my parents in my house, or at least on my property. I don't want them somewhere where I can't just come in 24/7 and just pop up, because I just don't feel comfortable with the
No, you
quality and
can.
caliber of people.
Almost everywhere they give you a code, and you could go in at any time. You can always visit, but it's not the same.
It's not the same.
It's
not the same. So if people are, not here in Atlanta and they don't have the ability to reach out to you for your help, so you just work, the people that you deal with are local in the metro Atlanta area?
Yes.
Now, what do people do in other states?
Well, I belong to a professional association.
Mm-hmm.
I've been a member for probably 17 years now. They've
Okay.
been around for 35.
Okay.
It is the Aging Life Care Association, ALCA. And you can go online and find somebody that you can plug in your zip code, find somebody within 100 miles of you
Okay.
at aginglifecare.org.
Okay. So aginglifecare.org.
aginglifecare.org.
Okay, and that will help you find a care
A
manager.
care manager,
in
somebody
wherever you are.
credentialed, somebody who has experience, RNs, social workers, other medical professionals, certified in care management.
Okay, okay. So now, sometimes when people find out that their parents have had an issue or they're losing their cognitive abilities. Um, they tend to feel like they'll make a couple of calls and then they freeze
Yeah.
and they don't do anything.
Yeah.
Or it'll get better, or they're getting better. And when people first start losing their cognitive abilities, they kind of float in and out.
Yes, they do.
During the early in the morning, they're fine. So when you call them first thing in the morning, like, yeah, I'm going to do this today, I'm going to do that today, and then later on in the afternoon, they're lost.
Yes.
So what do you recommend to people who want to wait and see?
First of all, that is a choice. So a lot of people think sometimes by doing nothing, they haven't chosen to do anything.
Okay.
And it is a very passive choice, but it is still a choice. Doing nothing doesn't solve anything. And I do find that there is both analysis paralysis, where you research so many options you can't make a decision. That is a problem in and of itself. And then it's the folks who are waiting for a sign, or they think their mom's going to be okay. There's a lot of denial.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely ties into why people don't make choices.
Okay.
For the seniors themselves who cannot, that's one problem, but some can make some decisions, or they can be a party to their decisions,
Right.
but choose not to because they don't think the inevitable is coming.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a problem.
Well, when we come back, we're going to kind of jump into the things that we need to do so that before you're in a crisis mode. So come back in, I think, about 300 seconds. We are back with Financial Renaissance with the Emms. That was quicker than 300 seconds. It was actually 2. And listen, you are listening to us live at ssnatl.com or sensationstationnetwork.com. If you want to watch the show and you're watching us on Facebook, go ahead and do a search for Sensation Station Network, hit the like button, and then you can actually see and hear everything, because I saw a comment that we can't hear the guests if you're watching me live on my own personal Facebook page. You can, if you have comments, go ahead and drop those in the comment section, or you could text us at 678-613-5857. And what we're talking about today is aging life care. Okay, what do you do in that final quarter of your life? That last quarter. What do you do with your life? And it's an important conversation. People don't like to have it because they think that if they talk about, growing old and dying, that they're going to grow old and die. Duh. It's what's going to happen, right? Nobody wants to be here, but I think we're starting to look at death a little bit differently in this country. We've always looked at it very negatively and so final, and just the way that I look at it now is just a little bit different. So we do need to have these conversations, and the importance of having these conversations is so that when something happens, you don't know what's going on in your family member's life, period.
Yeah.
You don't know, if they're in college and they're studying, if they've got finals, there needs to be a plan so that people are not caught, I call it flat-footed, caught off guard and not know what to do. So it is extremely important that you do have some type of final or elder care plan that your whole family knows about. One of the things on my website, emmaknowsmoney.com, we have a 10-step contingency plan. You can make a contribution and pick it up, or you can find one free out there in the sphere, on the Google. Somebody would have one. But what I did was I put together a workbook that would say, like, when does your trash go out? Who is your handyman? Who does the lawn? How often do they get paid? Who are your utility companies? All the information that you'll need to run somebody's household if they can no longer speak for themselves.
Yeah,
it is
great.
very important. When you're in crisis mode and somebody ends up in the hospital or, God forbid, dies, you can't figure this stuff out. And it can be right there in front of you. It can be, there's a stack of mail and you can't figure that stuff out. And I created this workbook because when my grandmother passed away, we were clueless. It was, watching, very intelligent people bump heads because nobody could figure anything out. And I never want to see that happen to anyone. It's horrible to be grieving or to be very sad and trying to figure out financial stuff at the same time, which is why I have Lisa here today. You are here to save people money. And
Actually, we do. Yes, it costs money.
It does.
But it saves money and time and heartache and stress.
and making mistakes. And again, it's the what you don't know that hurts more than what you know.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And there's so much of in providing care for our elders, and there's so much that we don't know. So again, before the break, we talked about why it's better to have a family care plan now than wait till we're in crisis mode.
Yeah, absolutely.
You wanna
That's
speak
the
on that?
worst time to make a decision. A lot of people do. They wait until crisis mode, and then the information comes at them fast and furious, and it is always more expensive when you are in crisis mode.
Why?
Because you're going to need a higher level of care, or they don't understand. You're looking at expensive legal work, and it's traumatic and tears families apart. If you
Yes.
plan ahead, I guess this is what I want to say. A lot of people don't want to be a burden. I know you've heard that. They don't want to be a burden, so they don't plan because they don't plan to be a burden. Not planning is what makes you a burden.
Thank you. I couldn't have said it
Oh my
better.
gosh.
It's the not planning.
That
Not planning
makes
is a
me
plan.
nuts.
Yeah, not planning is a plan to disrupt your family's life.
Having no plan, to what you were saying earlier, and you're trying to scramble to figure things out, that's when it becomes a burden.
Listen, the new tax law that's out, there are tax advantages of buying long-term care insurance. If you're under 40, you're able to deduct money. If you're up to $420 based on your premium. And if you're 71 or over, you can deduct $5,200 or a little bit over that. So there's a scale based on your age. The older you are, the more that you get to deduct. So the federal government is giving you an out. They're giving you a
Incentive.
incentive for
Yeah.
it. And then the state governments are giving you an incentive to also have long-term care because they'll take the premiums that you pay into long-term care and keep that in your estate for your heirs. So it is very important that you do some type of planning, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Do you have any classes? Do you teach classes?
I do presentations all the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
if people want to reach you, if they want to learn more, how do they get in touch with you?
You can get in touch with me at Lisa K at seniorcareopt.com.
And Opt is OPT.
That is Oscar Paul Thomas.
That's right. And then if you want to call their office, their number locally in Atlanta, well, it doesn't matter where you are, 770-579-9177. And you definitely want to give Lisa a call or, reach out to her because you want to find out how does this planning work. You can also call our office at Greenwood Wealth Management at 404-633-9952. I can put you in touch with Lisa. And again, no matter where you are in the country, if you need to find a care manager,
Yes.
right? You can Google Aging Life Care or go to aginglifecare.org. Again, it will save you a ton of money if you do this preventative work ahead of time.
Yep.
And long-term care, they've got different ways of skinning that cat now. They've got the traditional long-term care, which there's less than 12 companies that offer the traditional long-term care. When I started in the industry, it was over 100. So insurance companies know that, hey, there's people are living too long and they're needing too much care, so they're trying to get out of the business of selling new policies. But there are what's called hybrid policies where it'll be a combination of life insurance and long-term care. So you pay, say, $10,000 into a policy, and then you'll have $40,000 towards care, or if you're paying $60,000, you'll have $280, or, so on and so forth. And if you wait till you're over 80, it's like a 1-to-8 ratio on your money. Even some annuity companies have long-term care riders. So this is definitely something that you want to look into. And Lisa, thank you. Thank you for taking time,
Thank you, Emma.
being here with us today.
My
This has
pleasure.
been a long time coming, and you will come back?
Oh, absolutely.
All right, awesome. We'll be back with Financial Renaissance with the Emms. And we are back with Financial Renaissance with the Emms. I am your host, Emma Foulkes, and I want to say thank you again to our guest, Lisa Kaufman. She gave us a lot of great advice. And don't forget that you can always reach out to her at Lisa K. At seniorcareopt.com to find out about, how do you go about planning for your family members' last quarter or your own last quarter of your life. All right, so let's look at what's happening out there in the big tech or big pharma. So there is has been a Parkinson's dementia end up having. So that's going to be something that should be out this year. And then there's another powerful tool against the war on cancer. The country's first carbon ion therapy center is set to treat cancer cancer patients. It's being built in collaboration with Hitachi on the campus of the Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville, Florida. So this is going to be an alternative to surgery, and the new treatment is being viewed as the next horizon of cancer care. And it has the ability or the capability of killing cancer cells that are resistant to, say, the traditional radiation treatments and things like that. Don't know what the cost of this is going to be, but again, it looks like cancer is not going to be the death sentence that it once was. Now, last year, in the year 2019, last week I did a story on a female founder, like a startup venture capitalist. Well, it looks like $800 million went to femtech startups, and femtech means female technology startup companies. So if you are thinking about starting up a company, if you've got your own idea, you're an innovator, you're one of those visionary type people, venture capitalists are now looking for women because they know that we're just the bomb. Now, the best job in America, they're saying, is paying not $800,000. I wish. The best job in America is paying $150,000, and the best job in America looks like it's called a front-end engineer. Front-end engineers had an overall job satisfaction score of 3.9 on Glassdoor, making theirs the #1 profession, all right, in terms of job satisfaction, salary, job opening. So it looks like front-end engineers develop the code that enhances a customer or a user's experience, and they essentially create and install and test the user interface elements of a website, all right? That is the #1 job. So when we come back on Financial Renaissance with the Emms, we'll have my market movers and losers. And we are back with Financial Renaissance with the Emms. Happy Sunday, everyone. Hey, listen, let's talk about my market movers and losers. All right. So looking at our sneakerhead stocks, Nike was up and Foot Locker was up. Adidas, Puma, Under Armour, and Skechers finished the week down. Most of the luxury brands finished up. Ralph Lauren, Tapestry, Tiffany. And then looking at our cannabis companies, it's still really splotchy. We've got some up, we've got some down, but there's some big changes that are going to be happening here in the United States when it comes to that cannabis market. And then in the gaming industry, Microsoft, EA Sports, Activision, they all finished the week up. And then on the markets, the Dow, the S&P 500, and the NASDAQ all finished up because of the trade war. Looks like there was a deal signed. However, this first phase of the deal has no impact on us Americans. It's actually going to help the Chinese out a little bit more. And then now the Deloitte, Deloitte and Touche, is it Deloitte and Touche or just Deloitte? Just Deloitte now. I'm showing my age. Deloitte actually did a survey of chief financial officers in the United States, and nearly all of the corporate CFOs say that the economy is going to slow and that the stock market is now overvalued. Let me repeat that. The CFOs in corporate America are saying that the economy is about to slow down and that the stock market is overvalued. They think the stock market averages are overvalued according to 77% of the respondents, and the expectations are especially dismal for Europe and China. As I mentioned earlier, the United States budget deficit topped $1 trillion in 2019 for the first time in 7 years. That means that the United States is not collecting enough money to keep up with all the wars and all the tax breaks that have been given. So anytime the country is not generating enough money, they will take it from somewhere, and it's usually the bottom 99%. Weeks ago, last year, a couple months ago, I told you that the Treasury Department was looking at issuing 50 and 30-year bonds at really low rates, but the market said, get out of here with that nonsense. So instead, what they're going to issue in the first half of this year is going to be a new 20-year bond. The government spent $1 trillion more in 2019 than they brought in. So this was the highest calendar year deficit, as I mentioned, in 7 years. The Treasury also said last year that they were going to be exploring the possibility of issuing, debts with higher maturities, but they're not going to do that. So the last time they offered a 20-year bond was in March of 1986, just to show you where we are as far as trying to get some yields. So that 20-year bond, though, is going to be something good for a lot of other countries because we are the piggy bank for the world. So, the interest rate may be 2% or something still ridiculously low compared to inflation. But for the rest of the world that has negative interest rates, these 20-year bonds are going to be extremely attractive, and that will also help prop us up. We'll refinance some of our debt, and maybe we can get some infrastructure replacements and fixed. I'm tired of driving around potholes. All right. Okay. So now let's look at what's been happening with the S&P 500. And the S&P 500 consists of 500 stocks chosen for their market size, their liquidity, and their industry group representation. And its market value is weighted based proportion to their size. Okay. So since 1926, 84% of the rolling 3-year periods for the S&P 500 have produced a positive return. And remember, I've been saying when the market goes down or we're in a recession, it's not a bad time unless you're not prepared for it. That is when a lot of things are going to be on sale, including the stock market. And typically when the market goes down, it's back up within a 3-year period. The S&P 500 has been up 40 of the last 50 years. Between 1970 and 2019, the average rate of return was 10.6% per year. The stock index has produced an average annual gain of 18% during the 40 up years, while losing an average of 14% during the 10 down years. All right. Also, on the United States indexes or stock exchanges, there are 172 Chinese companies listed on the major U.S. stock exchanges. That's just something to think about. It's thought-provoking, and it may also be an opportunity. Now, each and every day, the United States Treasury bond market, it was open last year for 250 days. Out of those 250 days, our U.S. government sold more than $2.5 trillion of notes and bonds for a grand total of $10.2 billion per trading day. So again, we are the world's bank, and thankfully they find that our treasury bonds are backed by the full faith of our government. And even though our government looks a little wonky right now, people still believe in parking their money with us. Also, we're having another issue in the United States. This has to do with the population. The Census Bureau projected that there would be 330 million people by January 1st of this year. 50 years ago, our nation's census, the decennial, which is the one that occurs every 10 years, measured the population at 203 million. And 100 years ago, in 1920, our population was only 106 million. Now, the natural births in the United States has declined to just 957,000, which is not a lot of not a lot of births. When we're comparing it to the deaths. So here's the deal. We need more people in the United States to keep, to keep our Social Security going, to keep our economy going and things like that. And we do have immigrants, and we've got this issue with immigrants. But there are a lot of jobs that people here in the United States don't want to do. So if those immigrants want to do those jobs, if they want to join our military to get citizenship, I'm all for it because, again, this is a country that was built on immigration. When we come back on Financial Renaissance with the Emms, got a story or two about Davos to tell you. And we are back with Financial Renaissance with the Emms. Listen, Patrina's in here doing judo chops and don't know why. Today or this week, what's coming up is they call it the World Economic Forum, WEF, in Davos, Switzerland. And as I mentioned, this is where all the world leaders, CEOs, a lot of corporate people globally show up at this event. And that young lady, Greta, who gave that speech about climate change at the UN, she's also going to be there. And this summit is taking place, at a time when we have a climate emergency, when we look at what's happening here in the U.S., around the world, and especially in Australia. Now, BlackRock CEO Larry Fink, he has said that he is going to, a lot of the things that they're going to be doing investment wise is going to focus around what's called ESG, and that's environmental, social, and governance, meaning that we're going to be looking at companies who are doing things to make our globe a better place and to reduce emissions. So a lot of people are angry at BlackRock right now for even saying that, but what Larry Fink is doing, he believes one thing, but climate change has become such a political football that we can't have intelligent conversations about what to do. So there's an index now. It's the DJSI, and it is the Dow Jones Sustainability North American Index. And what they're tracking is the top 20% of the largest 600 companies in the S&P Global Broad Market Index, and they're based on their sustainability, environmental, and governance practices. Now, don't even think this is not like the Dow Jones, the 40 index or any other Dow Jones index that we have. This is literally about sustainability. So what they're looking at doing is tracking a lot of these companies that are trying to reduce their carbon footprint. Okay, and if you're investing money, if you're looking at making investments, you want to make the world a better place, you want to make sure that the companies that you're investing money in have the same values that you have. A lot of people in our country like to use that word values and family, and it's supposed to mean something, and it's usually a bunch of crap. But what I'm going to tell you is if you're investing money, you need to make sure that the companies that you're investing money in are companies that are going to do right by our country and going to do right by the world. As we look in Central America, we look at South America, we look at what's going on in Central America, and we have all these migrants coming up to the United States. They're coming up because of global warming. They're coming up because they can't farm like they used to. They're not getting rain like they used to. Their waterways are drying up. So this is a global crisis. And when you have the country or the world getting hotter, we're not going to be able to have farming like we did. We look at the droughts that we're having over in California. It's going to make almond prices go up. It's going to make our produce prices go up. If you're eating beef and things like that, it's going to cost more to feed and water, a lot of animals that we have. So you have to think about, making money. And again, everybody wants to make money. I get that. But there is a way to do it in a sustainable manner. A lot of the oil and gas companies are now shifting gears, and they're looking at becoming more sustainable. So if there's a company that you're investing in and they're not sustainable, you can say something. We do have a voice, and that voice usually comes in the mail in the form of a vote. They ask you to vote for people who are members of the board, and it's going to require a little bit of homework. But if you have a financial planner, and this is why you should be working with a financial planner, you want to make sure your financial planner knows about the companies that you're investing in, outside of your 401k. Within your 401k, you're kind of limited as to what you can do in most cases, but outside of that, you should be talking to your financial planner about the type of investments that you're making. Who are you putting money into? And so what we do at my company, we do look at, returns, of course. We always look at returns, but we look at returns in comparison to what the S&P 500 or what the global markets are doing. Then we take things another step further. We look at who's on the investment committee. We want to make sure that it's not all white males, gray-haired males, older guys. We want to see that there's some women, Asian people, Indian people, African Americans, just a broad range, and most importantly, women. Then we look at their investment committee. We look at the board, we look at the investment committee, and we want to see the same. On the investment committee, we want to make sure that everyone that is working there or that is on the investment committee did not go to an Ivy League school. And the reason for that is that business schools, and no knock to anyone, but a lot of business schools have been churning out students who lack a little bit of moral and ethical values. They do stuff for making money, but they're not concerned about the consequences of their actions. And that's not what we want going forward. So when we're looking at our investment committee, we want to make sure that there's some Ivy League schools, some state schools, some people that have a former military background. And then we take it a step further and we do a little bit of cyber stalking. We go on their social media and we look to make sure that they're not saying or doing things that would offend or upset any of my clients. Okay, so we go from the top to bottom. It's not just about the returns. It's also about, caring or doing stuff. Are they doing community service? What are they doing out in the community? Things of that nature. So again, the sustainability index is something you're going to want to check out. Pepsi is on there. Coca-Cola, I believe, is now on there. There's a ton of companies on there, and of course, they get a little bit of heat for even bringing up climate change, but we have to. I can't implore it enough. We have to talk about climate change, and climate change is going to be one of the number one topics at Davos this week, because companies are going to have to figure out how to do two things. One, they're going to have to reduce their carbon footprint, and two, they're also going to have to do it and remain profitable. So there's going to be a lot of changes. And BlackRock and Al Gore said late last year that ESG, environmental, social, and governance investing, is going to be the highest, or the if you're looking for stocks or things to invest in that are going to take off, this area is set to jump off because of climate change. Because we have to do stuff, a lot of companies are going to be looking at ways to clean up the environment, and those companies are going to be the growth companies of the near future for us. So if you have any questions, like I said, you can always call our office, 404-633-9952. You can ask for me, and that is at Greenwood Wealth Management. All right, some other numbers that we have. There is an economist. Well, actually, he's a CFA. His name is Bob Dahl. He's with Nuveen. And one of the things he's been saying about our economy is that currently, even though we've been having all of these highs, we've had the longest expansion in our country's history, investors may be looking past certain risks, such as disappointing corporate earnings and lingering issues in the manufacturing and the trade sectors. And remember, I just talked about manufacturing and told you that the manufacturing sector, it has a skill set problem. There are a lot of people who don't have the skills, so they're looking at investing about $26 billion to bring people up. Now, the employment numbers, they move just enough, just good enough just to get by. The December employment numbers were good enough for investors, so that's why the stock market looks good. But the employment numbers, in my opinion, weren't that good. The current expansion, again, will continue to move. Long-term job growth is slowing, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be the end of the current expansion. And then watching for inflation risk. Now, inflation, there's a couple of sectors that are going to be inflation fighters for us, and that's going to be technology and also global competition because of these trade wars that we're in. So that's going to keep inflation down. Then now with the tensions between the United States and Iran, I guess we've reached a parlay. They're not going to do anything. Hopefully, we're not going to do anything, and that will keep the markets from being very jumpy. When it comes to the United States and China's trade war, it looks like the U.S. Is going to be the loser, and especially because the phase 2 of the trade agreement may not happen before the United States election. So if you're waiting for phase 2, if you're suffering because of the trade war, you're going to have to come up, you're going to have to do some digging and figure out what you can do until the phase 2 of this trade agreement is signed into place. And again, that may not happen till later this year. And then this decade-long economic expansion has been slow and could continue, but in my opinion, we're on thin ice. I wholeheartedly disagree. Bob Dahl says that we're not seeing imbalances in the economy, and I disagree. I've got some numbers and charts that I could share. And then the other thing is, let's see, with the corporate earnings represents a huge risk in 2020. Stock prices have been rising for the last several months, even as corporate earnings expectations have been falling, but expectations for 2020 may still be too high. So when the market does go down, what happens to spending and hiring? If the market goes down or things get real volatile, that's a time when people may stop offering jobs, and also layoffs may come about. So when we come back on Financial Renaissance, we will have my Emma Knows Money debt reduction tips when we come back.
SSNATL.com.
And we are back. We are back with Financial Renaissance with the Emms. Are we back? We are back. All right, I see the head nod. All right, this segment of Emma Knows Money is brought to you by Greenwood Wealth Management, and what we're going to be talking today about, and we've been talking about paying down debt. Right, we're getting ready for the recession. It may not come this year, maybe next year, but I want people paying off debt and putting cash on hand to take advantage of opportunities that may come about when the recession hits. So here are 7 debt payoff planning tools / apps that you can use. And again, I have no affiliation with any of these, and I haven't tested them out. But the first thing is to get a free credit report and score before you even attempt to start paying down your debt or come up with your debt payoff plan. You want to have a ground zero, a base level, right? So the first step is to go to all 3 major credit bureaus, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, and get your free credit report. You can get one free each year, and you can also get that through annualcreditreport.com. You go on there and then look at and make sure that everything is right. If there's something that's wrong, write it down, because you'll be able to. We're going to be putting tools on the Emma Knows Money website so that you'll know how to dispute any type of things that you see on there that's not right. All right, Vertex 42, VERTEX 42. If you're one of those that loves using spreadsheets like myself for paying down debt, they offer free business budgeting and financial templates, and the website's debt snowball calculator is good for people who like to pay down the lowest balances and things like that. So it'll show you, if you put $10 here, $10 there, it'll kind of show you the different things that you can do. So that's one of the easy ones. Another one is undebt.it. So UND as in David, EB as in boy, T.it. If you can't stand tracking your finances on spreadsheets, this is a tool that's going to be good for you. Basically, Undebted offers a robust set of tools, including the ability to choose from 6 different payoff plans, as well as an option to create a customized plan. Now, the basic service is free, but the website charges about $12 a year for premium services. It'll have like bill management, account reports, and things like that, and then you can sync it with other budgeting softwares. And again, but you can do it for free, so you don't have to pay money to start getting rid of your debt. Another one is unbury.me. So UNB as in boy, URY.me. And when it comes to simplicity, this is one of the easiest ones. This website has a streamlined interface without the bells and whistles, and anyone can create a payment plan. There's no need to create a login or account or any of that stuff. But it's not one of the most powerful tools out there, but it is one of the easiest. And again, you don't have to create an account, but it only gives you 2 approaches to paying debt off. Now, another one that you may love is called Tally. T as in Tom, ALLY. And that's if you want to put your debt repayment plan on autopilot. Basically, the users will register your cards with Tally, and then the app makes automatic payments based on what it deems to be the most beneficial repayment schedule. I don't know about that one. You'll want to look into it and make sure you have enough to cover it. But they also can extend you a line of credit, which we don't want to do. We're trying to pay off debt. We're not trying to add more on. Okay, so Tally, it can be used to make your debt repayment plans easy, but it's not for everyone, again, because they want to do stuff on auto pay, and you'll need a credit score of at least 660 if you want to get their line of credit. Now, Loan Buddy is another one. Again, we're talking about paying debt down. Now, Loan Buddy is marketed to financial professionals like me, and it's a convenient way to analyze student loan debt. I'm not going for it because they want you to pay about $60 a month. But again, there are other tools that you can go after out there to help you figure out how to pay down your student loans. And then Pay for Ed. This is another tool specifically for student loans, and it offers solutions for people who are planning to go to college, so that you'll know how much you're going to have to spend on your debt when you come out of college. And I think this will scare kids immensely because they don't understand, they don't know what they don't know. Now, a 1-year subscription for Pay for Ed costs